still lifted 300 plus pounds in that skirt.
Awesome, thank you.
Last night, yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the student forum this quarter. This is all about what we do and have done and will be doing in the future. On the agenda today, we have our introductions, and then we have Holly going to speak, Moira, Ben, Nora, and Alicia, and then finally me. So I'll have everybody introduce themselves briefly. My name is Mariah. I'm the Director of Outreach, and I'm going to be here to talk about outreachy things. And then we have Holly Wetzel, our President, Moira Kelly, our Vice President, Ben Brown, our Director of Legislative Affairs, Nora Duncan, the Director of Internal Affairs, Alicia Witten, the Director of Finance, and then finally Susan Palmer, our Director of Student Technology. And we'll start off kicking it off with Holly.
Right as I take a drink of bubbly. Perfect. Okay, hello. Holly Wetzel, President. The two things I will be focusing on is the work that has been done in relation to the Food Equity and Basic Needs Task Force, as well as the Inclusive Access Task Force. There have been some other things that have been in the works behind the scenes that I've been working on, but we're going to keep a focus on these two task forces. So beginning with where we were with fall quarter, the task forces were both tasked to put together a survey and to outreach to the student body to collect more student data. Where you'll probably remember from our last town hall is that the Food Equity and Basic Needs Task Force is the one task force that's returning from the previous year. That task force found that the need was so great, especially with regards to food insecurity, that we needed to continue this task force. However, last year's survey, when we collected data from students, it was so focused on food insecurity that we didn't collect any input regarding students who may be experiencing housing insecurity or any other basic needs insecurities that we didn't know about. And in order to advocate to administration and even the state for any needs or funding support for programs to help students in these areas, we need to show that there's need for it. So the Food Equity and Basic Needs Task Force was incredibly successful with their survey, getting almost 500 survey responses, which is fantastic. And we now have data that reflects any improvements that have been made with regards to food insecurity and access. And then we now have new data regarding housing support and what we have identified and are now calling transportation inequities. And I say, yes, this is a basic need in particular for our task force because so many of our students are commuting. So with regards to where the task force's priorities are going forward with regards to food insecurity and access, we have three pillars of what we're really working on. First and foremost being increasing awareness on on-campus programs and cultivate new partnerships to support students with regards to food insecurity. So what does this mean? So in terms of increasing awareness for food assistance programs, what we learned through our survey is that only 46% of students are aware of basic needs resources on campus, and 41% of students have heard about our existing programs, but don't know the details of that. It is a very small minority, less than 10% of students that actually know about the resources that we have on campus and what they do. So what the task force is really advocating for is having an all hands on deck approach to ensure that students are aware of the resources that are on campus, know what they do, and they feel comfortable accessing them. You'll hear me talk about last year about how we wanted to have students have less stigma with regarding to access these resources. What we're finding from survey data now is that it's not so much that students feel stigmatized with regards to going out and receiving those resources. It's that it's more regarding knowing what those resources are and how to access them rather than feeling uncomfortable accessing them on their own. What we've also found is, so with regards to that, before I go on to the second point, is what the Food Equity and Basic Needs Task Force is doing is in order to get that all hands-on approach, we're looking to see how we can get the faculty more engaged, meeting students where they are, and they feel more comfortable getting students to go and access those resources. Since the resources are so strained in the Office of Advocacy and Support and the food pantry, for them to go out and do that outreach, that's where the Food Equity and Basic Needs Task Force is going out and doing that work for them. We've been, so far, when reaching out to different deans and different academic units, we've been met with really just optimism with this kind of work. Where the School of Education gets a special shout out. They have been the most responsive and ready to support all the work that we're doing. Some schools, not so much, but we're slowly working, and we're hoping that we can get all branches of academics on board to be able to support this work. And regarding cultivating new partnerships to support students, what we had heard from when we last presented the data last year was there were questions of, well, if students aren't using the resources that are on our campus, they must be going out into the community and using those resources. They must be going out and using their local food bank. So then we asked students this time around, hey, are you going out and utilizing community food resources outside of UW-Tacoma? Only 23% of students report that they are. So, and this is on par with what we've seen with campus-based resources. So what this leads the task force to believe is that students either don't know about outside resources that are available to them outside the campus, or they simply don't know. So the question is, how do we tackle this? Making students more aware of outside resources, and that really feeds into the work that the task force is doing with regards to increasing awareness across the board. What this also means by cultivating new partnerships is looking to see what local nonprofits or organizations could continue to support better local to the Tacoma-based community. One local nonprofit that we're looking into is Good Roots, where they have a honestly very innovative approach to addressing food insecurity in the community, where they have, if you've seen those Amazon lockers, they have those, but they're refrigerated. You can order on an app, and you can go in and place the food. You essentially go grocery shopping on an app, and it's there for you to pick up, and it's free. So we're planning to meet with them next week, I believe, with Christine Stevens as well, to see about how we can have that partnership continue and sustain into the future. And we're also open to working with other nonprofits to make sure the pantry continues to be stocked and everything going forward. Second point, campus-based food voucher program. This kind of goes more into the legislative area, so I'll default to Ben for when he talks in his area regarding ledge updates. But the idea of having a campus-based food voucher program, this would be funded by a state proviso, or if we're able to get some kind of donor funds to be able to pay for it, that's an avenue as well. But we learned that through our data, 56.3% of students said that they would use food vouchers to buy groceries or meals off campus. So what the task force is strongly advocating for is to being able to establish this program. Now, this is a program that already exists at other campuses across the state through a pilot program that was funded by the legislature this last year, I believe. UW-Tacoma wasn't included in that pilot, so the point of the proviso is to get UW-Tacoma in that pilot. And then finally, pantry meal workshops. What we learned is that students said that 58% of students said that they were open to participating in cooking workshops held by the food pantry. So some people think that they can go get food staples at the pantry, but they don't necessarily know what to do with them. They don't necessarily know how to cook. This is what these workshops would help to provide. Some other things that aren't necessarily on here, but we are also working towards, is centralizing and promoting the Hungry Now, Eat Now initiatives. So those are the food cupboard, and seeing if in the future we can position the campus and the Office of Advocacy and Support to have multiple food cupboards on campus. So as the campus continues to grow, food-based resources grow as well. And then we're also looking to see how we can get the Giving Garden to partner with Court 17 to provide more food resources that go to the pantry that are grown here on campus. The Giving Garden already gives a significant amount of the food that they grow to the food pantry, so we're looking to see how we can grow that program in a way that's sustainable and doesn't incur additional costs. That was a lot. The second part is housing support. So with regards to housing, what we have learned is that roughly 1 in 5 students have experienced housing insecurity at some point in the last year. 1 in 5. And what that looks like is, okay, how can we support those students? While it's not as high as, say, food insecurity, 1 in 5 students experiencing housing insecurity. That's not okay. So the first thing that we're strongly advocating for is having some kind of using of university affiliated housing program or some sort of rent subsidy program. Because 45% of students said that they would utilize some sort of program that connects students to affordable housing units in the area. And then 56% of students expressed interest in having a need-based rent subsidy program for students. Where the task force is facing a little bit of barriers right now is who in the community would be able to help support this and who would be able to get it funded. This is a program that UW-Tacoma used to somewhat have through the Co's apartment partnership that we had, and that was also a partnership with the Tacoma Housing Authority. Through COVID, that partnership fizzled. So we're starting there to see how we can start something that already worked before, and as far as we're aware, already continues to work at Tacoma Community College, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But we're continuing to see how we could get creative with funding, especially with the funding landscape for the next 4 years being fairly uncertain. With regards to housing support, we're looking at emergency housing support expansion. So what this looks like is UW-Tacoma already gets a pot of money from our state government called the Students Experiencing Homelessness Act or something to that effect, where UW-Tacoma gets money to be able to essentially rent out the dorms that are in Court 17 to students experiencing houselessness for free, no cost to them. The intention with this recommendation where we're advocating is seeing how we can continue to expand that effort. So as the campus continues to grow and have more dorms, that there can continue to be more units to be able to meet the demand. My understanding and the understanding of the task force is that that emergency room is always full. And that leads me to believe that there's probably students who are not able to utilize that resource because it is full. So we really want to make sure that if there is a student in need, they're not being turned away because they're full. Finally, transportation inequities. And this is going to be the hardest one to fight because most people don't consider this to be a basic need. But because we are a commuter campus, this does become part of the landscape of things. So we found that 1 in 4 students have skipped coming to campus due to financial hardship in relation to transportation. And 25% of students, so one in 5 as well, have skipped coming to campus, or I'm sorry, 1 in 4 students. 1 in 4 students have skipped coming to campus due to a lack of money for gas or transportation. So when we have over 60% of our students commuting, and 1 in 4 of them can't come to campus because they can't afford to. Like, I don't know about other people, but I've had that happen too, where I've had to make the choice of, do I come to campus or do I eat food or do I pay for gas to come to campus, and go back and forth on that. And then some days I just can't. I gotta wait till payday on Friday. So that is a very real reality for students. And just from talking to our leadership about it, there's some that get it, and then there are some that don't, and they see that, well, this is just a cost that students have to bear and figure out. And then that's where I say, well, if we have to do, if we're all hands on deck to support needy students, what can we do to help our neediest students get to campus? So then what does this look like? The task force is looking to see how we can get some kind of gas voucher program for students who are experiencing hardship. We have an amazing person on our task force. Their name is Ray. They were the student body president at SPSCC, and SPSCC had a program where students who were commuting from farther areas, they could get an additional financial aid boost from to be able to cover gas. So we're looking to see if that's something that could be replicated at UW-Tacoma, or if we have to take a different approach to be able to get money into the hands of students who need that. We're also looking to see if there could be some kind of discounted parking for students who may be experiencing financial hardship. Again, similar approach, but where we're running into is, okay, well, where does the money come from? So that's talking to our leadership here to see, well, what money is missing, and then how we can either have maybe donor funds to be able to pay for it, or if there's some kind of community partnership that we can use to be able to subsidize. What this may end up looking like is we do a pilot program 1 quarter and we see how successful that is. Finally, we're looking to see if we can partner with the city to reduce parking rates and or create more parking. So this was just tripping over my words right now. What this looks like is partnering with our campus development task force, partnering with the ASUWT city lobbying team, just seeing how we can reduce rates across the board so more money can stay in students' pockets. There was a free response question that I always share with leadership when talking about this particular issue. A student reported that they pay almost $500 they pay the equivalent of almost $500 a quarter to come to campus because they're paying $10 a day for parking. And they're, like I started at the beginning, they're making that choice between food and other basic needs to be able to come to campus. And that is something that needs to stop. So wherever we can make those cuts is where it needs to be. I'm going to say any questions. I know we're doing this for the live, but are there any questions of anyone who's here? Whatever. Okay, cool. Inclusive Access Task Force. So this one is interesting because we have everything that's going on federally, and when the task force was put together and created the survey, we didn't realize the attack on DEI that is happening right now. So a lot of the recommendations that we're able to make based off of data, the task force has come to acknowledge that they may not be able to be implemented due to funding constraints or due to risk that the university may impose. So we're waiting to see we're keeping a very close eye on what's happening federally and also seeing what UW as a system does. Recently, some guidance has come out regarding what may happen, which may be that programs continue to exist but may be renamed. We're kind of going with the flow with a lot of it, but this is what we have. So with regards to belonging and inclusion, we had asked students who, looking at my document, sorry. We talked to students, in the survey, we addressed students and figured out, do they belong on campus? Do they feel included? That type of thing. And the students who said that they did not feel included, we asked them what their barriers to inclusion were. And the top highest barriers to inclusion that we found were students saying that they felt like they couldn't connect with their peers and that they couldn't connect to faculty. And what we also found is that what made students feel more included is students reported that being able to engage with their fellow students and being able to engage with their fellow faculty is what helped them feel included on campus. So then what does this mean for the task force? What this means is just simply address any barriers to inclusion. So this is looking at what is the Center for Student Involvement doing that could help support student-to-student connections, and what is happening in the classroom to be able to support student-to-faculty relationships. Moving down to equity and inclusion, you'll notice that on the slide, it's blank. It's because we're still trying to figure this out. So what we've already identified from the data that I can share is that we're looking to create a council or a committee to help advise the work that the Center for Equity and Inclusion does to make sure everything is student-centered and to be able to support the work that they are doing. However, what we're trying to see is what resources can we continue to support? Where if things weren't happening how it is now federally, we would be having a conversation of, we want to advocate for these programs. We specifically asked students about what programs they wanted to see in the Center for Equity and Inclusion. What do students want to see in terms of resources that are available? Some of those things that we asked on the survey have already been implemented. We now have a Q space in that area. We have more spaces for neurotypical students or neuroatypical students. We have the Center for Equity and Inclusion has been doing a lot of great work, is what I'm trying to say. And they continue to, and the task force continues to be very impressed by that work. So what a lot of the questions that we've asked on the survey are kind of irrelevant because they've already been implemented. However, there are some that we ask for, like implementing new programs. And the task force will continue to advocate for those, but we don't necessarily know if that's feasible. So part of with regards to this pillar that the task force is looking to evaluate is what can we do internally at UW-Tacoma to retain these programs? How can we make sure that with everything happening federally, things continue to be maintained and continue to be student-centered? So that's where this is really looking at. Finally, with regards to campus accessibility, this is where we have a little bit more that we can work with, just based off of what's happening federally, at least until the federal government decides they want to come after this too. What we learned from students is that they want a centralized DRS meaning Disability Resource Services. So if you didn't know how DRS already works, basically we have to go through UW-Seattle for everything. If you want to get accommodations, if you want to utilize anything in the DRS space, there is a space at UW-Tacoma, but much of the policies and decision-making things need to go through UW-Seattle. And what we also find is that some of their services, like transcription and otherwise, that goes through UW-Seattle. We don't have a dedicated person to do these things at UW-Tacoma. So the question is that since students support this, how can we look towards getting more funding or otherwise for DRS to be able to support this? Second, we also learned from students that they also want a larger DRS center with additional student services. What this looks like is maybe self-advocation workshops so students get to continue to support. This could also mean just like a social affinity area. In the last year and a half, the DRS has slowly been making its way towards doing that, but they're also a two-man shop. They don't have a lot of people there, and they've also had some turnover. So we're trying to see what we could do with the barriers that are in place. And then finally, addressing the physical barriers to campus. So our campus is not very accessible at all. We have tall hills. We don't have great signage. Roughly 30% of students said that they've had issues navigating campus. So this could look like adding more campus maps. This could mean more building maps. This could be making sure all the elevators don't shut down and are down for months. We're looking at it all, and we're trying to see what we can do, because what we're finding is that a lot of the work that's being done here is bigger than what the resources we may have. But it's same with the Food Equity and Basic Needs Task Force. We're trying, and we're going to do our best. But we may have to get creative. This may mean partnering with local nonprofits to be able to get things passed and funded, because with state and federal things where these may be traditionally funded, that's not an option. And then that's all I got. I'll pass on to Vice President Moira.
Okay, this one's on? Perfect, amazing. Okay, so keeping with the task forces, I oversee the Campus Development Task Force. And so we looked through all the data that we collected in fall, and myself and my team came up with the main priorities and recommendation that we're sending out to staff on campus and are working towards. So our main priorities are affordable housing, as always, increase in parking facilities, specifically the cost of parking, like Holly was saying, for the Food Equity and Basic Needs Task Force is what they're looking at, and the affordability of it. Available dining spaces on campus, a student union building, and a health center on campus. So all of these things, my team and I are meeting, and we're coming up with ways and ideas to further work on these priorities. Currently, we're working on an MOU to ensure that there are student voices being heard, as the master plan is now the campus master plan is now done. And so the next step is they're looking for contractors to start dining spaces and the new dorm buildings. And so we're working on an MOU to ensure that once the contractors have been chosen, the decisions and the conversations that are having about these new spaces include student voices. Okay, next. And then I also chair the Council for Campus Engagement. And so I just wanted to do a little shout out to everyone. So for this year so far for our campus event fund, we have had 20 requests so far and we have funded 19 of the 20. And this is an example of one of LSU's events that they had that we funded. And then for the Conference and Training Fund, we've had 40 requests this year and we funded 35 out of 40. And the only reason we didn't fund the 5 or the 1 is because they weren't within the time constraint. So we funded a majority of all of our requests and we have money. So if you want to have an event on campus and need funding, or you want to go to a conference, come get funding. Thank you. That's all.
Hi, Ben Brown, the Director of Legislative Affairs. To start on my part of the presentation, just a quick recap on Huskies on the Hill. This was our most successful Huskies on the Hill that we have had in recent record, I believe on any record that we have. We had 137 UW-Tacoma students registered, with 372 students total across all 3 campuses registered. And due to weather conditions and obviously people dropping on the day of and stuff like that, we still ended up with 80 UW-T students in attendance on the day of, which is huge. It's still, even despite only roughly half of the students we had registered showing up, we still had the largest turnout that we've ever had from UW-Tacoma. Along with this, there are currently being talks between the 3 campuses, the 4 student governments, ourselves, ASUW Bothell and ASUW Seattle, and the graduate student government of UW Seattle to designate Huskies on the Hill as a tri-campus effort. So hopefully moving forward, this will not just be a one-time thing. This will hopefully set a new precedent on how Huskies on the Hill is conducted and planned moving forward. Few updates on Olympia as far as bills and our legislative priorities. Currently, the Washington College grant bill to have it codified at 70% MFI is, it passed the policy committee last week. However, we are still working to try and get a hearing in the fiscal committee. As part of that, I'm sure plenty of students have seen a lot of emails coming from our President Holly about contacting your legislators, calling, emailing, stuff like that to get them to support the Washington College grant. Please, please, please keep doing that. If you've already sent 10 emails, send 11. All right. The only way that we are going to get this through is if students are putting pressure on the legislature to pass the Washington College grant. To give a little bit of a rundown on what could happen if we do not get it past this legislative session, where the Washington College grant currently sits is at 65% median family income. What that means is 65% of what is considered what qualifies as part of the median income across the state currently qualify for the Washington College grant. However, that 65% is not codified into law. What is codified into law is 55%. That 65% has an expiration date, which is this year. If we do not get at least the 65% codified into law, 10% of students who currently qualify for the Washington College grant will lose their qualification. They will no longer qualify for this financial aid. So please tell your legislators that, especially if you are someone who currently qualifies under that 65% and believe that you may lose that qualification, if we lose the 65 and it drops back down to 55, definitely contact your legislator. Let them know that that is a risk for you and that this is impacting your ability to go to school. Look back at the emails that Holly sent out. There's all the information that you need on how to contact your legislator. So please do that. Let them know that we need a hearing in Ways and Means this week. A few other priorities. As Holly also mentioned, the UW-Tacoma Basic Needs Proviso. What a proviso is, to give a quick summary, is a line budget item request. Basically, it doesn't involve a bill. It's just requesting the legislature to temporarily provide the funding for a single request. So what we are asking is for the legislature to approve funding to add UW-Tacoma to a basic needs pilot program that was introduced in 2023 under House Bill 1559. So if you go to the legislature website, if you're interested in reading the bill itself, you can go to the 2023 legislative session and look for House Bill 1559, and that you can read through the bill language. But basically, the two schools that currently qualify under this basic needs pilot program are Western Washington University and Washington State University Pullman. So the main WSU campus in Eastern Washington. We are trying, due to our high rates of students facing food insecurity, we are trying to present an argument to the legislature on why we believe UW-Tacoma needs to be added to this pilot program. So that proviso request has been submitted. We are still, myself and Ashley Ramirez, my legislative liaison, are still in discussion with representatives to have this proviso passed. We have contacted Representative Jenkins as well about this specifically. So we are trying to get her support on this as well. A few other bills that we have had a focus on, House Bill 1343, student free speech protection, is just a short title. Basically what this is we are trying to have an RCW repealed that was implemented in like 1969 as a result of protests to the Vietnam War. Basically what this RCW allows the state to do is take away students' financial aid if they are found to be part of any action on a college campus that disrupts the functions of the college campus. Our biggest concern, obviously, has been with this current administration and this being used against students by the federal government. So continue to support that because we also believe that there are certain areas of discrimination, financial discrimination, that this can affect as well. Passport and careers, Senate Bill 5275 supports the passport to careers pathways. It's currently being heard it should have passed out of higher ed and the Higher Ed and Workforce Development Committee. So I believe that should be in a fiscal committee right now. So keep an eye out for that in Ways and Means. House Bill 1316, supporting students experiencing homelessness expansion. Basically, the supporting students experiencing homelessness program that Holly had also mentioned before. We're trying to expand it where the system universities, so UW and WSU primarily, are not limited to only having the resources on one campus. Currently, UW-Tacoma is the campus that has these resources, but we are trying to have it expanded so that students at UW-Bothell and UW-Seattle, as well as all the WSU campuses, do have access to this and can apply for this support. That's currently in House Appropriations right now. House Bill 1485 is the SAF, the services and activities fee cap increase. What this one specifically does is raises the percentage increase allotted by the state. This does not guarantee that the fee will be increased by that percentage each year. So it currently sits at the cap at 4%. We're trying to have it raised to 6% per year. And basically, SAF still functions the same, where your SAFC still determines if they want to raise it each year or not. And there's still, nothing is being raised without student consent. This just allows for us to raise that cap above what it currently sits within state law. And then the last bill that I'll talk about, 5355, supporting victims that experience domestic violence and SA. Basically, this is just providing more support and resources to victims of domestic violence and SA to ensure that they feel safe when reporting and that they have the resources if they face this, if they're a victim of this form of violence. I believe this is my last slide, but a couple last updates. Quick city update. Myself and my city liaison, Leon, are currently scheduling meetings with the city council to discuss our city priorities, primarily focusing on housing and parking issues that students have brought up to us. And that's it for my updates. So I will pass it on to Nora with Senate updates.
Hello, my name is Nora. I am the Director of Internal Affairs, and part of my job is to oversee the Senate. So I'm just going to give a couple of brief updates about our senators this year. So first, we have our pre-major senator, Hasnea. So all of our senators conducted surveys during fall quarter, and they are currently in the process of analyzing and implementing initiatives based off of that data. So from her survey, she found that one of pre-major students' biggest concerns is disconnect. So she's working with Isabella Webb and her team to host a connection event in spring quarter for pre-major students. I believe Isabella Webb hosted a freshman transfer and connect event. So they do that once a year in fall quarter. So they're working to do another one at the end of the year. And all of the senators, if you would like to reach out to them, if this is your major, their contact, their emails can be found at the end of each of these slides. So next we have our education senator, Noemi. So she's working on career prep events, mental health workshops, career fairs, and more networking events. She is connecting with the new education cohorts, and yesterday she met with the bachelor's cohort and spoke about resources on campus for them. She's working on plans to collaborate with the education clubs to push for donations to their resource bookshelf for students to use, and the location of the bookshelf is WCG 324. Our SET senator, Eamon, he was struggling for a while to meet with his dean, but he finally got a meeting scheduled. So everybody clap and cheer for Eamon. Yay. He found from his survey that he's working on emphasizing new or encouraging existing experiential opportunities for SET students, including internships, research, and lab work. And he is working on creating technical workshops designed for skills and opportunities beyond the academic scope, furthering connecting course content and skills with real-world applications, encouraging industry connections and entry-level opportunities, and increasing the availability and diversity of course options. So a lot of connecting what SET students are doing in their classes to real-world opportunities. Next, we have our business senator, Kevin. He was actually in Vietnam for quite a while, so he is a little bit behind the other senators in terms of meeting with people and being able to push the initiatives that he's found from his data. But he has a meeting with his dean scheduled, and he is working on implementing those changes that he has found are necessary. And lastly is our Urban Studies Senator, Hugo. He is ASUWT's new Speaker of the Senate, so yay, Hugo. And he's working with Civitas on campus development initiatives, including the campus master plan and things related to that. And he's also sponsoring a bill that the Senate has been focusing on called Divestment from Companies Profiting from Violations of International Law and Human Rights in the Violence Against Palestine. If you're interested in this resolution, the Senate is actually conducting a survey to gather student input on the resolution so they can vote with student interest in mind. If you're interested in taking the survey, the QR code is on the screen, so go ahead and scan. The Senate will be voting on this resolution in next Thursday's meeting. There will be no Senate meeting this Thursday because of quorum issues, but go ahead and take the survey before then if you're interested. And then some quick hiring updates, because I also do that. We also recently hired a graduate senator, Heiko. So if you want to contact him, that is his email on the screen. And then we're currently in the process of hiring a School of Nursing and Healthcare Leadership senator, Social Work and Criminal Justice senator, School of IAS senator, did not put the word senator on there, and a multimedia specialist. And that is all that I have. So I'll pass it on to Susan.
Hello, my name is Susan, and I am the Director of Student Technology. This year so far, we've funded student positions on campus, which is a continued effort. And we've worked to expand printing access on campus, which was a concern voiced by students in last year's survey. We've also continued funding programs to increase technology literacy amongst students, which we've seen to be a recurring concern. And we've also continued providing resources for creative technology-based programs like the Multimedia Lab in CP005 and the Makerspace. We've also funded resources for RSO events and group activities, and we've made steps towards meeting technology needs for course-specific softwares and labs, which is mostly just making sure everything is updated and working for the newest updates. What students can expect from us as we go into annual allocations, because we just came out of our special allocations session. They can expect additional expansions to printing access, streamlining the printing on campus, more technology for intensive software required for classes, a one-stop shop for 3D printing, and further investment in ongoing creative technology programs. As always, we're constantly working to bring students the most value for their fees because you do pay that student technology fee. What we do want to hear from students is what technology works and what doesn't, what technology can be improved upon, what do you want to see coming from student technology fees, and how can we better inform students about the fees they pay and what it funds. Also, last thing, keep an eye out for a survey in the spring. I will pass it on to Alicia. Which one is it right here? This one? This one.
That's a like. I almost went.
Okay, okay, sweet. Well, hello everyone. My name is Alicia. I'm the Director of Finance for ASUWT. I'm gonna keep it brief because my overall job is to make sure the budget stays in the green. So, so far, what I've done, I created the overall budget for the next school year, as well as the special allocations for this year. So we were able to increase our Director of Outreach hours to compensate for her work. And then for annual, we were able to make the next budget for the next year for the new ASUWT members. I also serve on multiple monetary committees. Like when I mean multiple, I mean a lot. I sit on budget advisory committee, which is with administration. I sit on SAFC, CCE, STFC, and I basically help with reviewing special and overall allocations, and basically just to be there to help in any way. And now we're also working on annual allocations, which has just started for STFC and SCFC. So also a quick little thing, I know we mentioned Huskies on the Hill previously. I also helped allocate funds for that. We kind of rebudgeted at the beginning of this year to make sure we had more money in that pool. And for this next year's budget, I also put some more money into that pool when we proposing, since we had a good number of people this year. So yeah, that is all for my updates. So which one is it? The arrow. Sorry, I'm not used to this. Okay, now outreach.
Hello again. Director of Outreach, name is Mariah. Some highlights from me this quarter are basically my job is to support this whole team with their efforts for outreach. So big one was Huskies on the Hill, as we've mentioned several times before. We had 130 roughly registered for Huskies on the Hill. 137 to be specific, which is huge. And we had some like really severe weather when it came around. So the fact that we actually had a good 80-ish people was really impressive, actually. Sorry, looked for confirmation. So what we did at Huskies on the Hill, we basically lobbied for basically just the student well-being and any kind of like needs and support that we can provide as student government. So it was really important to us to be there, and the show out that students came with and the enthusiasm that we saw was so special. We also had our rally, the kickoff party for Huskies on the Hill, which was fun. It was just basically to have our guest speaker talk to the students and get them excited, and also just for Ben to introduce himself and for the rest of our team to say, hey, we're in charge of this. So if you want to come talk to us during this or have questions, feel free. We also saw from our surveys that students wanted wellness activities. So we did the finals wellness totes last quarter, and it actually was a huge success. So I think we might do that again in spring. Well, depending on funding. So no promises. So we also got high participation in the survey submissions this year, which is super exciting. We're hoping to get more even next year. So always keep an eye out for those surveys and take them if you can, because it really helps our team out decide what we can do for students and kind of justify it in a way to admin. We also collaborated with many campus development teams and basically told them like what we think students would appreciate being implemented on campus as far as the development goes. We collaborated with the Giving Garden and SAB on a few events where we focused on student engagement and just kind of being involved on campus, saying hello. And if you have any questions, again, we're always around. So come talk to us. We don't bite. We also increased our Instagram following by 272 followers since August. That's been really huge. And I really appreciate everyone that gave us a follow at the beginning of fall and throughout. So yeah, those are my updates. Here's a cool picture that we got from the Capitol. This is the Speaker of the House, Senator Jenkins. She basically got to talk to a bunch of students, not just our team, but students that attended Huskies on the Hill. And it was really special because her schedule is so tight. So we appreciated hearing from her, and we were able to get some questions answered. So yeah. All right, thank you so much. And if you have any questions, you can visit ASUWT's page on UW, and we are always available. If you go to meet our team, our emails are posted there. If you want to speak to me specifically, it's aswtor@uw.edu. Yeah, thank you. Stop sharing end screen.